Okay, so like I said, a relation is a set of any ordered pairs, and you can represent a relation in several different ways. You could just write out the ordered pairs like this. You could plot them on a graph. You could list them in a table, or you can do something called a mapping. Has anybody ever seen a mapping before? A couple of us? Okay. A mapping, basically, like our first point is 0, 2. So I put the x coordinate over here, the y over here, and then I draw a line to connect 0, 2. And then I draw a line to connect 1, 3. And then 2, 4, and 3, 5. The most important things about a mapping is your x is on the left, y is on the right, and you have to list both in order from least to greatest. We're going to do the first one on your homework together today, just to make sure we all understand what to do. But know that that's called a mapping. Okay, so make sure you know these 4 types. The next word that you need to know is called domain. Domain is the set of x values. So if it says name the domain in the relation above, look right here. Domain, think in an ordered pair we have x and then y. So in each set of parentheses, the domain is the first number. So, like 0 is x, 1 is x, 2 is x, and then 3 is also x. When I write out the domain, I'm going to write the curly braces, and then I list all the x values in order from least to greatest. So this time they're already in order from least to greatest, so I just copy them. 0, 1, 2, 3. And make sure you put commas in between each one. So then the name for all the y values, this is range. Do y'all remember the range where you do like the biggest number minus the smallest number? This is not the same thing. There's actually 2 meanings for range in math. One range is where you subtract. This other range is all the y values. So the y values, those are all the second numbers in each parentheses. So again, we list these in the same way. You use the braces and then write them from smallest to largest. So the smallest is 2, then 3, 4, 5. All right, any questions on that? Okay. The next part of your notes, we're going to talk about independent and dependent variables. Have y'all done this in science this year?
Yes.
Yes. Has anybody ever heard of this dry mix thing I have on the board?
Mm-hmm.
Is it people that have Miss Webb?
No.
And Miss Campbell? Button? Okay. I have never heard of this before today. But, I mean, if this helps you remember which one is independent, which one's dependent, that's great. Like dry ends in Y, so it's Y-axis, and it starts in D, so dependent. And then mix ends in X, X-axis, and it has an I in it, so independent. Whatever helps you. But most important is we have independent and dependent, and we'll talk about the differences. So in an algebraic situation, equation, table, or graph, the variables, usually x and y, can be classified as either independent or dependent. Y'all will notice this year, the farther you get into science, it has a lot of math in it this year. Have y'all started to notice?
Charles Law,
Yeah. And did y'all have to do the stuff like where you cross multiply and stuff? Yep. This year science has a lot of math. So, the independent variable, this is always located on the x-axis. Okay, and then the independent variable is in the, what's the name for all the x values? Domain, yes. Have y'all ever heard of like input and output with a table? Anybody? Some of us? I always just think of like alphabetical order. Which one comes first in the alphabet, X or Y? X. So X is input is first, and then Y is second. It's output. It's what comes out. So it is usually the input in a table or equation. Quite often, the independent variable is going to be some measurement of time. Okay, so it's something that stands alone. There's nothing that affects this. It's just time. And then the independent variable is always what happens first, or it's what you know first. I'm sorry, that focus. Okay, so this is going to seem a little confusing at first, but I think when we look at some examples, it'll help. So next, the dependent variable is basically the opposite of all these. The dependent variable is located on which axis? Y. Okay, and it's in the range. Good. Okay, range. It is usually the output. Good. The next one, the dependent variable, it depends on what the independent variable is. Okay, and this is what happens second. Okay, so on the back side of this paper, I have a few examples. We'll do the first few together, and then I'll let you do a few on your own. So a student's grade depends on how much she studies. I always like to think about what is going to happen first. Do we study or know what the grade is first? Study. Okay, so the independent variable here is time studying. Okay, and remember I said on the front side of your paper, the independent variable, a lot of the time it has time in it. Okay, this is a measurement of time. It's the amount of time she studied. And then the dependent variable, what depends on the studying, is the grade. Okay, number 2, the height of a plant and the amount you water it. So what happens first? Do you water or does it grow first? You water. Okay, so amount of water. And then dependent variable, we can put height. Number 3, the amount of money you make and the number of hours you work. Okay, which one happens first? Do you work or do you make the money first? You work first. Okay, so the number of hours you work is independent. This is another example when we have time. It's independent. And then dependent is amount of money. Okay, or you could put money earned. Why don't y'all try 4 and 5? 4 is a little tricky. Try those two. Finish. Okay, so number 4, the number of sodas you buy and the total money spent. The independent variable here is actually the number of sodas. Did y'all get that right?
Yes.
This one is kind of tricky. It would be the other way around if it said the amount of money you have and the number of sodas you could buy. Yes?
Because you have to buy the sodas first.
Right. Think about it. It doesn't say the money you're going to spend. It's the money spent. So it's money, get the sodas, and then you spend it. Number 5, the number of houses you can paint depends on how much time you have. Okay, so remember we said time is normally independent. Okay, so time you have, and then dependent is houses painted. Sorry. Okay. Is that confusing or not? I think number 4 is just the only one that's kind of confusing. What I want us to do is I want us to get out our homework and do the first one together, because I want to make sure you know what to do on the first. On your homework, you need graph paper. Okay? If you don't have any graph paper today, I have some, or you can borrow from somebody next to you. I'll just give you a sheet today. Just need a sheet of graph paper. Oh, you need one? Be nice to her. Anybody else need graph paper? Good? Okay, open up your book to page 43, please. Open up your textbook, please. Okay, for 9 through 13 only, I do want you to write down the problem. Okay, for the other ones you don't have to, but 9 through 13, write down the problem. when you list a set of ordered pairs like this, you have to list it exactly this way. You see I have each ordered pair in parentheses, and then I have commas between each ordered pair, and then around all of the ordered pairs I have braces. That's important. So number 9, it says express each relation as a table, a graph, and a mapping. So we're going to go through each one and make sure we know what they look like. So first, a table. When you do a table, X is on the left, Y is on the right. Bless you. And then a table, you don't have to write them in order from least to greatest. You can just copy. So the first point is 0, 0. So I just write exactly what I see. 0, 0. And then the next point, -3, 2. And then 6, 4. And then lastly, -1, 1. I'm going to give y'all just a second to catch up before I move on. So the next one I'm going to do is a mapping. This is the one you need to pay close attention to. When you do your mapping, you're going to first draw 2 ovals. And then the one on the left, you can label X. Sometimes people label it domain. You can do either. Then the one on the right, we label Y. Sometimes people label it range. It doesn't matter. So then look at your ordered pairs and look at all the X values. So all the first numbers in parentheses. And we need to write least to greatest. What's the smallest X value? Yep, -3. And then I have -1. Then 0 and 6. So then I'm going to take the Y values and write those from least to greatest. The smallest Y value, 0. Yeah. 1, 2, 4. Hopefully your ovals are a little more symmetrical than mine. Not much. So now I'm just going to connect the points. So you see the first point listed is 0, 0. I connect the 0 and the X with the 0 and the Y. Does that make sense? And then next I have -3, 2. So I connect the -3 with the 2. So then my third point is 6, 4. I connect the 6 with the 4. And then the last point is -1, 1. I'm sorry, let me focus this. I connect the -1 with the +1. Okay, any questions about that? And the last one is I'll do the graph. So you shouldn't need a very large graph for these, but draw your X and Y axis. And then we can plot the points. I'm going to go over how to plot points just because I need to make sure we're all doing it correctly. Okay, so first I have 0, 0. I know that that's at the origin. And then -3, 2. Remember when you're plotting points, you go left and right, and then up and down. So -3. Do I go to the left or to the right? left, 1, 2, 3, and then 2. Do I go up or down? Up, 1, 2.
Isn't it like positive, negative?
I don't know. I can never keep up with that. It's the top right is positive, positive, negative, positive, negative, negative, positive, negative. Yeah. Okay, so then 6, 4. That means I go to the right 6 and then up 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then negative 1, 1. I go to the left 1 and then up 1. So do not connect your points. You leave them just like that. So lastly, it told me, it says in the directions, determine the domain and range. When you're writing the domain and range, since we've already done this mapping, we kind of already have it done. Remember, domain is x values, and you have to list them from least to greatest. So you can just copy the x values. -3, -1, 0, 6. You see how I write D and then colon? That's domain. And then for range, I can write R and then colon. And I can list these y values, least to greatest. 0, 1, 2, 4. So you have to do this stuff for 2 more problems. Are there any questions? All right. One thing I did want to tell you, actually, look up here, please. When you're doing your mapping, if you have a number that repeats, like say you had 2 6s, you only write the 6 one time. There's one of the problems like that. I don't remember which one. 11. Yeah, there's 2 -3s. You only write the -3 one time. That applies to when you're doing the mapping and when you're listing the domain or range like this. Don't repeat a number.